Hi, I'm Mark Sumner, CEO and founder of Robertson Sumner. Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast, where we will share learnings, best practices and failures with some of the biggest names in the IT industry, all with the simple aim of being the go-to place for IT sales professionals and managers to learn from others with the ultimate goal of maximising performance and growing the channel. I'm the host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the pleasure of having Jay Ludgrove in the house.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, very well. You okay?
Very, very well. Very well. It's great to see you.
Great. Thanks for coming on the show. Now, what was great was you actually got recommended to come on my show by Michelle Lewington, who said to me, would it be good to get someone on the show that's got one experience of being an account director themselves and doing the role, but also now is getting to the world of social media. So I thought we'd kick off a bit of your experience in IT, but I do want to get on more to social media in sooner rather than later. So
sure, one informs the other as well, which is nice. You know, my experience in IT is one of the reasons that I'm now working in marketing. So I actually started in IT. My first job at 17, I was working for a company called ITnet, which were basically Cadbury's World's IT team that got so big for their boots that they were then running outside contracts. They were running like Southwark Council or IT, etc., outsourced IT company. Worked in it for a few years, and ended up in kind of third and second line support, not because I was technical, but through nepotism. So I was the guy no one wanted to call, but I was very nice about it. And then from there, kind of worked in customer service. Got out of IT and worked in advertising and a bunch of different sales roles before coming back. And the lovely Michelle Lewington, as you mentioned, I worked for one reseller and decided to take a real step back from being an account manager all the way back down to lead generator, lowest part of the totem pole, to really learn the industry. And thankfully was given the opportunity by Michelle to work for her and work my way up from lead gen all the way through to account.
So I didn't know that when you actually went to work for Michelle, you were actually starting in lead gen for her.
Yeah, right. You know, great big half the pay cut, hard work, working on leads. I'm not very great at getting leads as a lead generator, but I was okay and enough to then be given the next part. And something I focused on from the moment of being within that company was just being a sponge out of the people who worked there. And like David Silsby worked there, who's a great salesman, and sitting and kind of just sucking information out of everyone to understand the industry and the channel and IT as a whole, not just the tech.
Yeah, because it's IT security, aren't they, really?
Yeah, networking and security, absolutely, yeah. But heavily on the security side.
Okay, and talk to me about your career then we'll move on. So you started in lead gen, and how did you find it?
Yeah, not the most fun thing in the world, but what it made me realise, and I'm so grateful that I did it, and I always will be, and I tell salespeople that now, is lead gen. When I was sat in that for like a year and a bit, I was sat watching account managers and saying, so if they don't hit their number, they blame me for not getting them a lead. And in every industry I'd never worked before, there'd never been a lead gen team. There was a sales team and you got your number. Here's your desk, here's your phone, go and hit your number. But in IT, then there was lead gen.
Yeah, you haven't qualified a lead for me good enough. That's why.
And that's why I can't hit my number as an account manager, paid double what you are, and it's your fault. I didn't understand that. So after about a year of working in lead gen, I was then I basically said, like, give me a number. Give me a number and I'll hit it. But unlike those guys, I don't want any data. Right? I don't want any leads. I don't want any accounts. I want nothing. Just give me a number and I'll hit it this year. I wasn't given a huge number, but like sub 100K in GP, fair number, first one, and was able to hit it because of that lead gen experience. I know how to pick up a phone and just get involved and find it. And I was working all the avenues that other people weren't because they're using the data in front of them.
So the data you had, was it cold or was it warm? Was it what sort of backwards?
Well, they're a really well-established company, network utilities. So there are a myriad of data, basically. Good accounts who are spending. They had a number of accounts who were on maybe like maintenance support contracts, but haven't got the tickling, as I would say, that they need, or like the support or the influence. And I used a lot of that to go through and just find opportunities. Where are we great at? Why aren't we talking to that person at that? And using what I was given from the channel to essentially go out to those people, which early on wasn't much because I'm just not techie. Like my whole sales strategy in IT is, have you met Ted? Right? I'm just like, hi, I'll make a joke. Have you met the tech guy? Right. And I'll sit back and, give me a shout when you want to talk money later, because in IT, I feel that should be the relationship. It's not about me selling you something that you might need. It's about finding out the whole and what you need to solve. Speaking to a tech person, if they can do that, then great, I'll go and get it for the best price possible.
Yeah. Did you take your techie guy with you along to meetings, or was it just someone you'd use as a, if there was a problem you couldn't answer, you get the person to call?
Good question. Mostly I always take a techie with me. I'm very much have you met Ted across the board. Right. But because of my lead gen experience, I can qualify quite a long way on the phone. Get to the point where it's really worth a while everybody having a meeting. And I did some Sandler sales training when I first started, and that quality of like push for the no, and if you don't want this, tell me now, means you can actually get quite far on before having to quote unquote waste your time, as salespeople say, doing the meeting, which isn't necessarily done. I also hate time on the road. There's nothing worse than driving back from a 2-hour meeting being like, well, that was pointless. Yeah,
you've done it. Do you think when people go into sales, they should sort of experience that lot of lead gen first of all? Because it's quite a, like I said, it's a mind-numbing job to start with, I think, all those sort of calls, and most people try and avoid it. So if they come into sales for us as a grad, they want to go straight into having an account manager role or a number.
Glamorous bit.
But yeah, exactly, the sexy bit. But do you think it's a necessary evil to go through that sort of pain to go through in lead gen? I
do, because it teaches you tactics, which now in 2019 and 2020 are incredibly useful. That ability to like ferociously prospect. And be that through LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, using the tools that are in front of you to actually get in front of your client and know who they are, is the same skill I learned from having a bunch of data in front of me all those years. But now I apply it to different, you've got to make 250 calls a day. That's savagery, right? Savagery that I've done in different companies for years, and it's horrible. Ring the bell, if you haven't closed before 11, you've got to stand up, and then you get your chair taken away, and you get high fizz jacket. Now, Network Utilities wasn't like that, but previous companies I worked in, and I think if you can take that mentality and be like, I was there, I was in Nam, man, and take that to your sales process as a whole, I'm never left at the beginning of the month being like, I just have nothing. I'm left with being like, there isn't much of a pipeline. Let's go and make it happen.
Yeah.
Let's go and make it happen. And I got 2 weeks to just get involved. So those fundamental
skills are always there, just in case it's something's dry and you need to upskill your pipeline.
And let's be honest, it's always dry.
Yeah.
Even when you got loads of deals, it's always dry. Keep going at it. And I block out my time almost like different people. I'll block out lead generation days on lead gen days or prospecting days. And I won't be calling people that I know on that day because I need a different mindset. I need the furiousness of like trying to get those contacts in front of me before I can do the hi, how you doing calls on a different day.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's carry on with your career there. So you obviously started in lead gen, you moved to account management, and how was that for the first sort of year or so?
Good, really enjoyed it. And one of the things I focused on was a product that Network Utilities has always been historically very good at, which actually sat with quite a lot of large accounts, but was a product which works so well. It was just sat at the back of a lot of data centers, killing it, and didn't need maintenance, didn't need support, didn't need anything fixed on them. But that was always my focus, just because I saw it as what the company had been built on. So I just loved that tech and really got to understand that, which ultimately after a year working in enterprise took me to work in telco. It was a big jump all of a sudden, and I was given tier 2s, tier 3s, which was wonderful. So I was with a great salesperson, Oliver Reynolds, who you may or may not know.
I don't know.
Maybe, I just assume you know everyone in the industry.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
And he was working with the tier 1s, and it was great. It was really interesting because the pedigree that Network Utilities has working with the tier 1s is totally usable for tier 2s and tier 3s, but people don't think they can afford it, or people don't think that they can need that type of tech or type of solution. But actually, the way the market's going, there's some really, really big tier 2s. There's alarm companies out there who, if you chop the main line, it phones out on a SIM. We all know that, right? Well, they're service providers. They've got 2,000-3,000 SIMs out there, or 200,000-300,000 SIMs out there across all these networks. They need the same infrastructure that a relatively small, or a very small tier 1 or a mid-level tier 2 would need. Yeah. So I really focused that when I'd moved to work with the service providers, was finding businesses out there that actually we could take this thing that we're very, very good at, no one else can really do, and apply it to different business solutions.
Yeah, so finding that niche really.
Yeah, and also it's something that like we were great at. The company was great at. My my first ever sale for a company was I'd found for the company, I was in lead generation, and I'd found a maintenance contract which had died. And I spoke to someone, and they were, look, I've spoke to the vendor a bunch of times, and they can't fix it. And I was like, cool, tell me what it is, and kind of wrote it down, and it was all very techie, and I didn't know what it was. And I took it to a guy called Toby Makepeace, who is next 7th level Dan of knowledge of everything on that subject. And I read it out to him, and he was like, cool, let's have a call. He read out my notes, and they were like, yeah, that is the problem. And he was like, cool, I mean, I can't do it today. And you could hear them be like, what the? Because they've been working with it, because it was that knowledge. And seeing that was like, cool, let's take that. That's what I want to go out and sit in the meeting with. That's what I want to stand behind when I'm selling, is the bam, here it is. And having that as a service that could be provided across so many markets and across SP as well as enterprise was really exciting for me.
So you'd obviously been successful. Obviously, Michelle has confounded that, because she's obviously told me how great you were, and she obviously recommended you. So thanks, Michelle, for getting Jay on the show. But then you obviously came a time in your life you thought, right, I want to do something different, which is a big jump to what you've done now.
Yeah, huge. I never worked in marketing. So while I was working in service provider and dealing with the accounts, and it was successful and making lots of money, which was great, I wasn't really doing anything creative. And once upon a time, I used to be a musician in a band, and all the band were managing directors or high level this or high level that, just because time's gone on. So my best friend Tony, who's now my business partner and the G in GL, he was working at Microsoft, and because we couldn't do the music thing anymore, we decided to start a podcast. And that podcast was called How to Write a Tune. And we basically sat down with musicians and had that conversation that I'd had loads of times with other musicians backstage in the green room or whatever, when you talk about like how a song is written. And then you'd have someone drunk at the end come up and be like, oh man, how'd you write that song? And I realized that conversation that we have backstage is never really shared with the audience, who are the ones who really care about it. So that was the podcast, and we talked for an hour and a half. Every week we booked some big people, we buskers, everybody. We sat down with the guy from Wheatus, which is great. And I was using lead gen tactics. I was just contacting everyone. I was contacting agencies, etc. So we did that podcast, and after 6 months of the show being released, we were nominated for a UK Podcast Award, and we were nominated for Best Podcast in the World.
Wow.
No, we didn't win, and we've got some great footage of me and Tony doing the Joey at the acceptance speech, where we're like, all in the dicky pose and stuff. But I was sort of sat there 6 months later saying I would never have been a podcaster, because I'm not techie, had my friend Tony not just put it in front of me and being like, here's a mic, go.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, I do now, but like it doesn't make any sense to me. So I started trying to see basically if there was a market for that. Me and Tony decided it was a good idea. Tony quit his job at Microsoft because he's a savage guy and just and a great big pair of cojones. And I bought a list, thinking standard old lead gen, went onto Facebook and managed to get all of our original business from Facebook. Like that's where I see pictures of my gran.
Yeah.
But this is 2015. And I was using podcast groups on Facebook, podcast friendly, podcast movement, being part of those groups when someone was like, hey, anyone know an editor? I was the first to respond. And then unlike all the freelancers out there, I was following up and had a process, put it in a calendar, recontacted them, sent an email through the website,
So your natural salesman in you come up and...
Exactly. But in an industry that's so new, it's mostly done with people like my business partner, Tony, who are like great at making it work, but they have no desire to go out and find the market or create the market. That went very, very well for us very quickly. And I was able basically to, after a great year and a Christmas bonus, to quit my job in January and go and do GLPro as a full-time gig. Just me and Tony sat nose to nose in a big shed, but nevertheless a shed. And essentially there honed the skills of social selling. Use social selling across the board to build our business. Within 8 months, we have 5 people in that shed, and it was a hot shed in that summer. And then took a couple of floors of an office, had that for the last 2 years, and now moved into our current place, which is, and we got 10 people working for us. So
fantastic.
Yeah, and it's all built on social selling. When I realized that if I'm given a list, I can only contact those people on a list. It's as simple as that. I can only contact Mark Sumner, that's it. Whereas if I'm social selling, I can contact kind of people like you, 20, 30 of them. I can create a profile and get in front of them. And I've just expanded my odds vastly. Yeah. And that then is very much what we then do as a business, is help companies facilitate that. It's how do I produce enough content to be able to be like on LinkedIn or on these different social channels, use social selling to ultimately get an ROI from it.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because what the listeners are going to want to find out, and especially the owners of resellers, partners and service providers, vendors, etc., is how they adopt that. Because I go to a lot of companies now, and I mention social selling, I mention content with marketing,
sure,
and it falls on deaf ears. I get a lot of people look at me thinking, well, Mark, if they're in sales, we'll give them a list. We'll give them a list of lapsed customers. Yeah. Just get on, call them up. We've got a great product range, etc. And I push back and I say, well, look, what reasons have they got to call? Is there white papers? Is there seminars? Is there podcasts? Is there events or shows they can actually go to? And they're not interested in doing that. Now, without shouting out specific people, there's a lot of antiquated owners in the industry that won't adapt to this, because I don't know if it's because they're scared or they don't know, it's the unknown, and social selling does take longer. It's a bit of a longer game. So what would your advice be if you were pitching GLProUK to go to see these sort of customers? How can they suddenly start adapting it, or what can they do slowly to start adapting to these methods?
Well, I think the interesting thing about the industry is it's always been relatively marketing heavy. There's companies out there right now just killing white papers. Here's another white paper. Ga, 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 ga. Yay, white paper. Or webinars, like the industry understood webinars.
Yeah.
But what they're not doing is realizing that those things are content. And the real interesting thing is how do people consume content? Three of us in the room, right?
Yep.
If we're all commuting to work, I mean, clearly I don't, but I might cycle to work, in which case I'm going to listen to a show. You might sit on a train, in which case you're going to, watch a video. Or maybe you don't want to do that. You want to sit and read something at your desk or while you're in the toilet or something. I don't know. But that's three ways that the three of us consume content, and that's just the way we do it. And I don't read white papers because of that, because I listen to shows.
Yeah, because you're in the car, you're not going to be white paper, are you? You're going to put a podcast on, you're going to put some music on, or whatever you're going to do. But
exactly, but I'm limited to just audio. Or if I'm sat at my desk, maybe I can have a bit of video on, but realistically I'm doing my job. I'm listening to audio. So if you're going to the trouble of creating great white papers, going to the trouble of booking a good webinar, and I assume you're not doing it unless it's good and useful, right? Everyone talks about value all the time.
Yeah.
So if your webinar is worth value, and you've got a good message and a good tech person that you're trying to put through to the 5 or 15 people who join that webinar, that's content. That's something that can then be released. And unless you're doing something specific which can't be shared publicly, that's fine. But anything that can is another way of releasing it. It's just a case of putting together how you're going to release it and on what channels.
Yeah.
It can be a video, a webinar is a video. Also pull the audio and it's a podcast. Also have the audio transcribed or written up, and that bad boy's a blog. You can then take a little minute of that video and you've got a little 1 minute to share on Instagram, or just a short snippet to add on LinkedIn. Create an audiogram of the podcast. So from one webinar, you can walk away with 5 pieces of content. And with marketing so content heavy, right? Everyone's problem is they're not tweeting enough. They're not posting enough. And the thing I hear from people most is like, but what am I going to post?
Yeah, and this is the thing, when we started doing it, a few years ago, when someone said, you got to get on Twitter and put tweets, etc.
Yeah.
And we were scheduling tweets. Let's put 3 tweets a day, etc. And we weren't really believing in the content, so it was just like bleh, noise going out into the market.
Buy my product.
Yeah, exactly. We were trying to push what we actually did, and then we started trying to do, and we haven't cracked it, but we started trying to do more. And Mark, who's in the room now, was very instrumental in actually getting the podcast doing. We're actually trying to push content out which people wanted to listen to and actually add value to. So, what's your view on people who are doing social media but just putting noise out there and not obviously seeing a return? How would you sort of adjust them to sort of producing more relevant content? Because half the time it is the idea.
Yeah.
If you've got the idea, then you'll actually do it. Half the time people are just sort of saying, well, let's retweet this or do this, and they don't even know why they're doing it.
Absolutely. So, and I guess for that is have a solid marketing plan. Know what you're focusing on. Look each year at what the profit is and where the loss is, and focus on the products, accordingly, or service that you've got. But then how can I create content? Usually the salesperson knows but doesn't know what to call it, right? So go and sit down with a salesperson and be like, you're on the front line. What do people like? oh, they like this, this, and this, and this. And you'll probably walk away with 2 or 3 things, which literally could be content.
Right.
And
because that's a great bit of advice, asking the sales guys, because normally, again, not calling out companies that I speak to, but there's normally a very big disconnect between marketing and sales. Marketing is saying, oh, we're producing white papers in this, that and the other, and they're sending it out, and the sales guy's like, oh, my customers don't want to do that, they're not even interested. So
Absolutely.
Why are they going to push something they're not even believing in? So again, why is there a disconnect between sales and marketing?
And you know what's really interesting is how often do you see that there's one sales and marketing director, and that person's either a salesperson or a marketing person, but they for some reason get both roles because sales and marketing are intrinsically linked, however not in their departments. And as a salesperson, when I have to sit down with marketing, I'd be like, snooze. Now,
colouring in department. That's what I call it.
but and genuinely, and tech feel like that. I mean, tech hates sales anyway, but they also hate marketing. Sales then aren't seeing that what they need from marketing. The tools essentially out there, and tech just want to deal with tech. They don't care what's out there. But most of the time when they look at marketing, they're like fluffy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that Tony and I started the company. Is he's very techie, and he was sat on one side seeing products and things released, and being like, nah, just don't care about that. And then I was sat as a salesperson being like, if I wait 45 minutes of this hour meeting, they'll get to the pricing structure and I can get the hell out of here. And in the meantime, I'll message my girlfriend or something. yeah, and throw in some interesting comments when I vaguely know what's going on. And I think the problem is marketing is about getting yourself out there, but it should be the tool that sales are using to make their lives easier. It's a really hard job, sales, and yes, you can do it, but just being a savage and being a lead generator and picking up the phone. But if any inbound you can get, give me both. I'll grab it with both hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, when I look at, again, not knocking the owners of businesses out there at the moment, but when I look at the owners of businesses that aren't adapting it, it's normally they're sort of a similar age to myself, but they're not doing the role anymore. No. They're actually not doing the role. They're just thinking, well, actually, they should be cold calling. They should be actually going out to customers. They should be doing this. But when I actually mention about using content, etc., they don't want to know about it because they've never done it.
Yeah.
But because they're not doing it now, they can't even empathise why it'd be hard. Because to me, if someone asked me to go and do 10 cold calls, 15 cold, I wouldn't want to do it. In fact, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I'm annoying these people. I'm not going to get through to them.
You'd be bad at it. You wouldn't be any good at it.
I wouldn't be any good at it. They wouldn't even want to speak to me anyway.
Yeah.
So, I've very much adapted that we've got to do content. But I look at the owners now and they're not adapting it. What can we do? And like, if they don't get a chance to sort of speak to you directly, Jay, what can we do to educate those owners that are thinking, well, it's 2019, but I'm still adopting tactics I was using
it's a waste
10 years ago.
I don't want to waste my time doing this thing. So first and foremost, do it cheap. You can set up a really good podcast setup for not too much. It doesn't cost too much. You can podcast on your phone, for instance, or you can create content on your phone. All phones have great cameras. Give your marketing person the iPhone 11. Go on, get that contract, right? But that's a great camera. You could create content very, very, very simply. And then do it, set up a day. Set up one day a quarter where you're going to create that content. Bother everyone for that one day. Don't try and do it as something that you're going to be living hand to mouth, and simply work out as numbers. I got quarter, I got 12 weeks. So I need 12 pieces of content I can release every day. Okay, well, if we use that model I was talking about a second ago, if we create a video, have it as a podcast and a blog, okay, well, we could do that 4 times. My maths right? Yeah. So you could do it with 4 recordings, basically. 4 recordings of something. You could release it. Now, that's going to be samey, sure, but it's a very simple way of doing it. And how long is it going to take you to record 4 30-minute messages that you're then going to sweat down? What gets interesting is when you start to live like that, you come up with new ideas. You come up with a new concept about, we could do this instead. So I'd say do it cheap to start off with. Post out. Don't worry about what you're posting too much, as long as it's on message and on brand.
Yeah.
See the response and then invest more in it. Much like you would with any other tactic in the business.
Yeah.
But you have to give it time.
What about getting the ideas? Because again, a lot of people sort of say, well, I'm not sure what to create or what to say, etc. So because they don't know what to say or create, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
What would you say about trying to get the ideas out there as well? If you can't think of an idea, I mean.
Sure. Get another job. If you can't think of one idea about what you do, no. And what I mean is, it does get hard. You sit down, you got a blank piece of paper, and you're just like, we sell IT, only fall to pieces. But That's a place where I think maybe the channel lacks, because that's a place where resellers and distributors should be relying on the vendor to be producing content about themselves to say, here it is. And there's some vendors which are doing that now. Resellers will naturally be able to post more about them. If you just give it to them on a plate and say, here's a thing, you can use that just as your starting off point. Or with any product, sit down at it and say, who is this for?
I don't see what you just made. I don't see any reseller candidate that I've placed, or if you have, reach out to me and let me know. But I don't know any reseller candidate I've placed or I see in the market use a vendor's marketing to promote a vendor. So I never sort of see someone from CCS Media shout out about Checkpoint or a bit of content from Checkpoint. Never. It's normally about the vendor pushing it out to himself, or a little selfie video or something like that.
Sure.
And normally a price list from the reseller about something else. So why don't they do that?
Because I don't think the content's very good. I just don't think the content's very good, and I don't think that the vendor land thinks like Disty land thinks like reseller land, and I don't think the content that necessarily is being created works for the people on the ground, the resellers. And just like we were saying a moment ago, internally in a business, why doesn't marketing speak to sales? I know the business owner does, but why don't those two departments working together? The channel is a big business. I've always thought of it as just the salespeople are the sales department for that vendor, right? It's the whole point of taking it to market. If the vendor was talking more to the resellers and being like, what do you need? Oh, we need, like, if we had a video a week, we'd be talking about you guys all the time. Sweet. We're the vendor. We're the people who made this thing. We've got all the technical people, all the sales people who can wax lyrical.
We've got that, got all the resources at all complete.
Get them in a room like this for an afternoon. Do half an hour each. One person hosts it. You got tech, sales. Great, you've just spread over the two different sides.
Click that up, put it out via Instagram, whatever it is.
But then give it to the resellers, packaged up like that, packaged up in a minute for Instagram. Box, square, great. Wonderful. Facebook, it could be longer. Instagram, it can be longer. Give it to them, because if I'm on the trenches and I'm meant to be your sales team, Mr. Vendor, we're killing ourselves doing that job. Like, we're killing ourselves doing that job. We might not have a great marketing team who can be like, oh, where's Adobe? How do I do the thing? And I've got to edit it. Ugh. Should be really simple. Plug and play. We'll drop this in and then it can be released. I think that way resellers are going to find it easier. But also then resellers will get ideas about how we can get our content out there. Oh, that vendor said something great about that. Actually, that's true about the other one. And we can start to release our own bits and pieces.
Yeah, because it seems very competitive. And, for like a vendor should be creating content like that to be able to share with every single reseller. It's up to them how they share it, but they should be able to create that content for them straight away, shouldn't they? But they don't. Why, Jay? Why don't they do this?
No, I'm talking to him, Mark. I'm talking to him. And I think it's just an older... The industry works so well for such a long time, such a successful industry for decades. It's weird to change it. There's distrust within the channel because the channel's always been the channel, and no one's quite talking because it works.
Yeah.
Sure, it's working. I get that, but at the same point, you need to be able to innovate. And if you're not going to move outside the boundaries of what you're working on, you can't innovate. I think they will. Really? I think they will. I think the problem that will happen first for the UK is it will come from it'll be US content, and then hopefully the UK marketing team within vendors will be like, that's all very US, and can start creating their own bits and pieces. But why not create a media pack that you do per product as a vendor that can be used by anyone? All you're doing is getting essentially those sales teams to become your marketing team, and you could become the biggest the fish in all of the small ponds.
Yeah, and it's got to be done. It's got to be easier to do it that way as well, isn't it? Much easier.
Well, and I think the problem is I've got editors and video guys, designers all working for me. No one does in IT. The marketing team might have design skills and they might have used video, but there's no video person.
No.
There's not a podcast person. You have to find someone who does a job and then is like, by the way, I can do a little bit of this cool thing too.
Yeah.
So until they're going to have that, it's a case of like, well, it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
There's so many apps. There's so much stuff on your phone. You can edit in a phone and get a video out. It won't be the best quality, but you can do it.
What would you recommend if you wanted a short budget? What would be?
I've never edited anything, Mark. I don't know. No, there used to be a great video service on the iPhone called Splice, which had music and such you could put on. I think that's paid for. Also, the big programs usually have an app as well. So like Adobe Audition or GarageBand, they'll have apps on there as well. But Google's your best friend when it comes to that. There's so many people out there doing shoehorning, kind of just jamming stuff in with this app and that app. My head of digital marketing is that person. We see videos come out and we're just like, who did this? And he's like, me, and I did a stop motion app and I did that app and I just can't. It's like, it's great. Whereas my production team has sat there trying to kill it for ages, working a lot harder than maybe an app can do it. So I reckon for yourself, use an app. You can. There's a bunch out there that you can play with just to create content, or the social media platforms do it.
Yeah.
Plus they have the edit process in them, so you could just have the video and then post it, and then half the battle's won.
Half the battle is to getting started as well, like you said. If you once you get started,
just do something,
and you can get a bit better and refine it. Because we were posting videos with no subtitles. We were posting videos that we had no end point, and suddenly, don't get me wrong, we're not the slickest of it, but we're starting to get to a point where actually, how can we improve it every time? So
absolutely.
What's your view on too much content? Now, what I mean by that is I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, as you know, and I know we'll move on to that. You went and saw him in New York, which I'm very, very jealous about. Now, his view is, well, he's putting so much content out every single day, and I'm thinking, is it overkill? Is people going to be seeing, if I put 3 or 4 videos out every day, people are going to just say, Mark, just stop doing this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to put 1 or 2 things out maybe per day. What's your view on too much content? Or do you think it's going to not be enough?
Yeah, so sort of two-sided. One would say you as a consumer of Gary Vee's content have opened the door and see the lot, right? But the point of creating too much content is the person who's never heard of you. What I've been really surprised at, especially considering Gary Vee is, top of the digital market. I see his videos and they're reposted, and I look at the strategy, see that, and it's very relevant to me and my business. Yeah. And everyone lives in a bubble, and that was someone I thought everyone would know. Before a couple of weeks ago when I went to New York, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm off to see Gary Vee, and people are like, who? I'm like, Gary Vaynerchuk, no clue, never heard of him before at all.
Mark, who's in the room, Mark actually said to me, who's Gary Vee? I was like, no, never heard of him. And this is probably, a year ago, Mark? Yeah, probably about 12 months. Then after that, obviously I'm followed on Instagram, I've followed on LinkedIn, and, God, on Instagram, he's...
It's a lot. Anything. Any channel.
Every hour, every other hour, whatever.
YouTube.
I'm seeing everything of him all the time, and I've listened to his podcast show. I'm going to his event in... at the NEC next month, I think, and one of them. But he's everywhere now. So do you think it's like he's got that awareness where suddenly, if you didn't know about him, you're suddenly... Because I thought, I was with you, I thought everyone... I was like, am I just a complete dinosaur? Do I not know who Gary Vee is?
Sure.
But there's still a lot of people that don't know him.
Tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of people know him. And then no one else does. Just like everyone else. Like, if I talk to someone who's really into golf,
yeah,
they're like, you must know this guy. And I'm like, that's just not my thing, right? And if you're not into marketing, or you haven't found Gary Vee through like positivity or sales and that kind of thing, you're just like, who's that? I think if there's too much content, if you're annoying people, or if that's the worry, basically, you'll see it. You'll see it in analytics. God bless social media. Right, I can see it. Once upon a time with marketing, I had to make 1,000 flyers, go and have it posted through 1,000 doors. If I got one phone call, I'm like, it works. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Whereas now I can see from a post, okay, that does work with people in the UK, but women in the US it isn't responding to. Cool. Next piece of content, we got to think of that. We got to change that.
And
then
where are the
that
analytics for that? Is just on LinkedIn on
yeah. So like,
it can't be just likes and comments and off.
No,
because obviously that's got at the end of the day, likes and comments. Yeah, but you've got to follow up and get the meetings. That's what we want. We want obviously business from it. But
always.
It can't be just for our ego thinking, oh great, I've got loads of likes now.
And that's the worst place to be.
Yeah,
that is the worst place to be. However, the engagement is important because that's where it's getting out. The more people who like it, then, for instance, if we use LinkedIn as an example, if you like something, I will see, because we're connected with each other, that you have liked something. I will see that post because you've liked it. So likes are good in that instance because the 3,000, 4,000 people I'm connected to on LinkedIn, the 6.5 million you're connected to, but it just got in front of all of them, and I've just expanded my network. So they're important for that instance, but it doesn't get meetings. What it does do is put it in front of somebody, and by posting that piece of content, you're in their head. And I've over the last couple of months experienced the first bits of like hate posts, etc.
Haters.
Exactly. And it's cool. I'm like, brilliant. So I'm out there so much that people who don't want to listen to this are like, oh, why do you post so much?
Yeah.
Stop and follow me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to stop.
Or don't comment. Just go and do something else.
Yeah, but I mean, I only surround myself by the positive things that I enjoy. Like, you know, sometimes Gary Vee gets too much for me and I can't handle all the positivity, and I'll just not follow him for a bit and then be like, where's my little dose of this? And I'll go and follow him again.
Yeah.
It's a click of a button. I don't have to follow anyone, right? And it's nice to know you're getting out there. So can it be too much? I think if you go from zero to hero, yes. I think if you just suddenly, you know, start blitzing your existing audience with a completely new marketing strategy, I think it's a very easy way of alienating everybody.
Yeah. Do you think it's a delicate balance? Because you start putting content out. You know, we've started putting content out daily now. Do you think there's a point where it's just too much, or
see what the analytic? See what the analytic. Thank you. Thank God you work in digital marketing. But see what they say. You can see the numbers. You can see it. And if you start to see all of your posts go down, or your actual follows of your page or something start to go down because you've been killing it for a month, panic. But at the same point, it's a marketing strategy. Put something behind it and say that we're going to post daily for the next 3 months. Each month we're going to look at the analytics, see what isn't working, adjust accordingly. And then at the end of those 3 months, see if it was good or detrimental to our business or our goals.
Do you know, I'm going a bit of a sidetrack now. Do you know about the algorithms through like LinkedIn? Because you know when they've got it where now if you like or comment on mine, we're more likely now to come up on each other's posts, etc.
Sure.
Or if I don't like something on my content, they're not likely to come up on my posts, etc.
Sure.
So do you know much about that?
Very much so. So much like Facebook, people that I have that I clicked on. I have a friend who moved abroad and clicked on his post once, and I just can't stop seeing that guy. It works more from your engagement with them will open that avenue essentially. So yes, people that you've commented on, people that you engage with, people that you engage with regularly will come up more often. But that's one of the reasons to implement social selling and make sure you're going through your network, looking at their pages. Same thing as well. If you're looking at someone's page, their information will come up more. So for me, it's not that much of a problem because I'm constantly on LinkedIn looking at different people and prospecting and looking, social selling to a degree sometimes, or just looking at the next campaign or learning. I tend to follow people that are helpful for me, my mindset and my business and my knowledge, etc. So, but I'll follow people where I can use that information, like a Gary Vee, for instance, where some of those strategies are incredibly important. They're all different, but essentially, yes, the people that you're engaging with are going to come up more, which means if you want to get in front of your potential customers, be interested in what they're talking about, be speaking about them. Also, if you find places that your existing or that your potential customers are interested in, so for instance, IT recruitment, if you can find that, then go and be part of the conversation on that hashtag on LinkedIn. Your company can post as a company on LinkedIn, providing it's on hashtags. So you can do what Gary Vee calls the buck 80 strategy, where you go on the top 9 of the top 9 posts and give your 2 cents 10 times a day. Right? If you do that on just each post on a hashtag, then every post that comes up, you're part of. So you're part of that conversation.
Yeah, no, I never knew that.
It's relatively new, a couple of months old, but a really good thing to do constantly. And don't go on there and sell and be like, hey, buy my new recruitment thing for $19.99. Right? You're not Crazy Eddie slashing prices, but go and be part of the conversation. Like one of the things that you have as a business, any business, is that you have the knowledge and expertise in the area. Go on those hashtags, be part of the conversation. Don't even need to be posting to then be trending.
So, Jay, talking about trending and getting in front of people, how the hell did you get in front of Gary Vee in New York?
So we launched podcasts, we launched content, we launched for different businesses. About 16 months ago, we launched a show in the US, and most of our business with regards to podcasting is all US based. The market has been very slow to kind of pick it up here in the UK. So we started the show, like I say, about 16 months ago, called the Mortgage Marketing Expert, which funnily enough is a really, really, really saturated market. And there's lots of other shows that are mortgage marketing this and mortgage marketing that, because it's their franchise and it's the industry in the US essentially. So we've taken that show from launch to 60 months later, where they get about 60,000 downloads. And the guy who runs that show, Phil Treadwell, was at Agent 2021, which is Gary Vee's real estate event, convention, expo, whatever it is, it's 4 or 5 days. He was one of the tables that Gary Vee went and did the sit down with. And basically, Gary gives out his email address willy-nilly. And Phil had messaged him to be like, yo, we met. Be great to, I reckon I can get bums on seats for the next 2021 because they're going to have a specific mortgaging tract, and that's what we do. And here's my numbers. A lot of follow-up. Phil even bought some K-Swiss shoes, which is Gary's shoes company, and messaged the receipt to the group because Gary had got back. Sorry, after the first message saying I'll do it. After the first message saying bums on seats,
wow.
I'll do it, and a bunch of people CC'd. So then follow up, and he wasn't really getting anywhere. It was meant to be a Zoom call as well, just meant to be a Zoom call. And then they cancelled it. And again, he's kind of sending emails to deaf ears. It's not coming back. So he buys 4 or 5 pairs of K-Swiss shoes, the Gary Vee edition or whatever those are, and sent the receipt because Gary had posted, if you buy these, there'll be a surprise for you or something on one of his buy this first kind of messages. So he sent it and was like, I don't need the surprise, but how about we rebook that meeting?
Yeah.
I think it was something like 20 minutes later, Gary then replied to be like, let's set this up. Again, just a short little message. And the team got involved and said, how about this date at VaynerMedia to do the show live? So Phil was just like,
absolutely, brilliant.
He was meant to be sat in his pants talking to Gary on a video, and instead he's going to New York. So he messaged me and a colleague of his, Dustin Brome, who's in something called the Industry Syndicate, and basically said, you want to come and create content around there as well? I had to take the opportunity because VaynerMedia, VaynerX is essentially what I do at GLPro on steroids. So I was walking around and looking at that table and being like, oh man, it's a bunch of Gregs. I've got one of those. And there's a whole table full of them. Oh look, there's a Simon and there's a Mr. Tubbs, right? And could see exactly like our business, but just massive. And the most interesting thing, much like actually your setup here, Gary had the smallest office in the whole floor. Little corner office, and it was probably smaller than this. The 2 people who were being interviewed, and there was then probably 7 or 8 of us all stood around. I'm filming content just like kind of this, all in one tiny little room, and that's where all those shows happen because it sounds great. You can get the mic right in front of you. You can do the whole thing. But I was expecting a big studio shoot kind of place. It's all dressed. It's just his office. There's stuff everywhere. Which was great to see. Great to see because you don't need much, as you've done. You don't need much to set it up and make it look fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you can just create content.
How do you think? So and that's a fantastic story, and kudos to you. So how do you think? Again, going back to the business owners of the channel, when they're seeing people trying to do social media and they can't manage the activity, so they're looking at people that old days, KPIs, lots of calls, lots of quotes or whatever they got to do.
Yeah.
Whereas social selling, it's a bit more touchy feel, it's a bit more seductive. So how can business owners or managers look at people who are trying to adapt social selling? It's a bit more of a longer game, and manage it so they're not just sitting on Facebook talking to their mates.
And that's what everyone thinks. And also that sometimes is exactly what it is, where people are just good idea. Where people are just sat on and not utilising it. And I think what the important thing to do is schedule out the time. Like, I think social selling, like I said, I come from a relatively old school background of sales. I think social selling is a great tool. Just like I think straight up hitting the phones and doing 250 dials a day is the worst thing in the world. And I still try and do it twice a month.
Really?
Yeah, it's horrendous. It's the worst thing.
You still do it, though, sort of
religiously.
Why?
I'm great on the phone for it. I'm great on the phone. I take an absolute kicking. Twice a month. Nope, great call. And I do it right on the floor in front of everybody. I think being able to give that skills to other salespeople and explain, this is how we do it. Let's get on the phones together. But that makes it so much easier for me, to be honest. It makes it so much easier social selling because I'm like, at least it ain't that.
Yeah.
At least I'm not trying to do 75 calls in this hour and just desperate for someone to pick up. And I'm not like early in my career. It's my company now, so I'm not just sat on the phone waiting for someone to pick up. If it ain't happening, I'm down, bow, next time.
Yeah.
But then when I do social selling, I do it furiously as well. I give myself time to fall down rabbit holes because you need to. really important part of social selling is like, oh, who does he know? And who does she know? And oh, who do they know? Oh, okay, cool. There's the opportunity. But also at the same point, I do it furiously for an hour and then go and do something else for a bit. And then, do some admin, answer some emails, do something, and then do it again furiously for an hour. Because I know myself, after about an hour, I'm just sitting on Facebook. Like, I'm just sitting on LinkedIn, I'm just reading stuff. And if I'm bored of the noise of my mouse scrolling, then I'm not really listening anymore.
Yeah.
But for that first hour, and I'll then break that time up as well. This much time will be connecting with digital, let's say it's IT. This much time I'll spend focusing on my local area, because why not have them on, your clients on your doorstep, based in IT, and I'm going to go for the security managers, right? So I'll spend 25 minutes doing that, and then another 25 minutes looking at who's connected with me recently, going through and those people algorithmically are going to show up. So going through my feed and seeing those new people who have come up, great. How can I comment and interact? But don't sell. I just don't sell. I've never sent a connection request on LinkedIn and then sent a message, hi Mark, thanks for connecting, and then gone through my sales pitch. Never. However, every time someone connects with me, I send them a message back saying, thanks for connecting, always happy to expand my network, was there anything specific you wanted to discuss? And that has opened massive conversations with me, because people have connected for a reason. Sometimes, sometimes people are selling me stuff. Yeah. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes, you've got yourself out there in the right way. And then the third part, or the rest, or the next part of social selling I would do, is that going out there and posting and looking at commenting, etc. And to answer a question you had earlier is like, where do you come up with the ideas? Yeah. Listening, comments, look through other people, go and look at your competitor, go and look at all your competitors, go and look at anyone in a similar idea, go and look at someone in a completely different, go and look at Coca-Cola while they do it, right? But look through it, look at the comments, see where people are interested, and see if that sparks we don't do that, but I could talk about this, and then write out a post, right? But just start doing it. And if the posts get good, say them into a camera. And if that gets good, great. Go and do it for a day and walk away with a whole big bit of but don't start posting today and start posting 15 posts a day, because you just won't do it in a month. Much better to say 15 posts.
And then they'll give up as well. You think if you don't get the traction, you'll give up straight away. If you start doing, you set yourself up for a fall doing that.
And it'll be a massive a waste of time. You'll spend an awful lot of time trying to post that often that you won't be doing your job, and you'll have to stop. Whereas if you set up something that's actually manageable, I'm going to post once a week. I'm not posting at all at the moment. I'm going to post once a week on LinkedIn. That's 4 posts. I need to think of 4 posts. If I can get in a room with everyone and we can come up with 12 posts, we're done for the quarter. Ooh, yeah.
When you go and see a customer, net new customer, what's the biggest rebuttal they'll give you as to why they don't want to sort of, start this campaign or start this, video social selling campaign, or whatever it could be?
And the first thing is people have misconception of the cost of content creation. It was always really expensive to have a film crew come in. Only massive companies would do it because it's like a guy and a thing and a guy holding a thing. And now we don't need it. Now we've got a phone. You can cut out the production costs completely and then just decide what level of quality you want. I have a full production team. They've got those fancy cameras. We do that for a bunch of people who want that level of quality, and you can afford it. But if you're looking to do it, you can do it at any level. Most times people are straight away before you sit down being like, I can't afford this.
So before you've even come there, they think this is going to be too expensive.
Yeah, really interested. I think it sounds great, but we probably can't afford it. Maybe we can afford the light version, the little tiny bit. We'll dip our toe in. And the nice thing about content creation for most agencies like myself is it's based on a volume of work. It's based on how much you need to do. So if it's a couple of videos, it shouldn't be too expensive. If it's a series of 30 videos or a podcast every week or something, maybe it's more expensive. But it's also a very good OPEX. It can be a cost which is going out each month, which isn't too horrendous. And I think good agencies, and something we try and do, is say, look, let's work over a 6-month contract, because it's marketing. You can't do it in a week. You can't do it. If we do it in 3 months, then there might be a spike month 2. I can't account for it until I get a mean average. I might be able to a little bit, but not properly. Let's do it over 6 months. Let's look at doing, and that expenditure that you're going to do day one, we can see what it looks like over 6 months. That a little bit more manageable, a little bit affordable. And the content can be released then as well, which is what you need. Yeah. You don't want 55 videos today that are getting old. You want 5 videos a month over a period of time.
So if someone wanted, they come up to you and said they want to dip their toe in the water, and they were a small partner, a reseller, or one of the major distributors.
Sure.
What would you suggest they start doing first?
So, content creation day. If you've got nothing, I would say do a content creation day. Get in an agency, get in your friend with a camera, whatever, right? But create content for a day with a plan to walk out with X amount of videos.
Okay.
And video.
And what would be a good day if I got how many video? What?
Sure, and it all depends on length, and you might want to have just like a short, and if you've not done anything before, keep it to 3 minutes. 3 minutes is quite long. If you can keep it to a minute, that's every video I release on LinkedIn is a minute. Why? Because then it can sit on Instagram as well. I don't have to mess around. Right. We don't have to worry about cutting it. It can just be released. So we keep it all under a minute. Keep it nice and short. If it's only a minute, chances are you can do quite a lot. And if you spend 4 or 5 hours on that saying, right now, me and you are going to spend 10 minutes, just explain the service to me. Done. Next person. Now you explain the service to me. Done. What do we do for a company? You tell me the history of the company. Sweet. You could very easily create 6 months worth of content.
Yeah.
Very, very easily. The ideas are hard. Like you were saying earlier, it's difficult to come up with good ideas. But if you're not doing anything, chances are you got them on your website. Go to the About Us, break it down into the 3 paragraphs you got. That'll be 3 videos. Go onto the homepage. That's like the company history. Sweet as. Cool. And then go and look at some content that your business is doing. So like a vendor's content, a distributor, something in the industry, something your client's done. You can grab a little piece of that and talk about it as a thing.
Yeah, because most people's, again, not knocking the IT channel their websites, but most of their websites are just like it's like a brochure. It's like a shopping, window. There's no interactive. There's no understanding the culture. There's no content or video on there. And again, is that just naivety, or is it just lack of understanding of social selling?
Yeah, and I think it's just the way that the industry used to be. You used to be able to do that, but now I can Google it, and if you haven't got the absolute best SEO, which
most of us haven't,
posting a lot of content will help. If you're saying one message in 4 different ways, then when I search it, because I'm a numpty and not a tech person, but I run the company, how do I secure my company? And that's a piece of content we've released, but we've also released on here's different ways of updating your new next gen server, or we've released those 2 pieces of content, which is the same message but just 2 different people. Well, then I've just doubled my chance of getting in front of a client.
What would your advice be if you wanted to you were a new salesperson in IT, and you wanted to make a name for yourself, and you're trying to do a bit of social selling, but maybe it's not completely embraced by the company, but you want to do it for your own personal brand?
Yeah.
So for just sort of Joe person, how would you give them some advice?
If you're new in the industry, I'd suggest definitely do it, because there are a bunch of dinosaurs in our industry. They're in sales, they're doing a really good job, and they can't do this. They can't do it. And it must have been the same as companies not advertising in the 80s. Right? They're just not doing it. And we don't need to, it's just a new thing. Do it. Because it's what, if you're new to the industry, those dinosaurs can't do what you can do. They can't get in front of 10 or 20 people like one customer. You can look at their best customer of last year and through social selling be in contact with 30 of that customer base who are exactly the same people. And that old dinosaur, as we're going to call them, just isn't going to get in contact with them, because if they're not given the number, if someone doesn't hand you the number, here's his number, right now I can call him. I don't need that. I don't need that at all. I can get in front of all these people, send them a message, get in touch with them, release content, then they contact me. Oh my. And that's the really interesting thing. When I'm releasing content and businesses are getting in touch being like, I saw this, here's a question, and I still don't sell. I just keep helping at that point where people are like...
Well, you helped us, didn't you? I remember, I looked at, we were going to launch our podcast, Channel Chat. Obviously, we're on it now. Hello. And you actually gave me some advice because I don't think we were registered or something. Was that all right on iTunes?
Hadn't done your RSS feed yet to iTunes, and because I know podcasts, I looked and you were coming up to a pretty hard deadline of being like, in 2 weeks this will be a show. And
if we hadn't done that, we'd have never launched. We would have been screwed. We would literally have been screwed because we hadn't thought of that at all, had we?
So that's a nice example of social selling. Is I do that all the time. I just try and put knowledge out there, but I don't just sit on LinkedIn doing it all day. I specifically set myself an hour a day where I'll go on, I'll be trawling through my feed and look at things and fall down that rabbit hole. There's the perfect example. I fell down the rabbit hole enough to have seen that you guys post about a podcast. I'm like, bing, podcast, cool. I like podcasts, it's UK and I know these guys. Then looked at it, then taking a little time, looked on Apple and being like, aha. There's some value I can add there as well, because I've fallen down that rabbit hole. You have to do it in social selling because it's where the opportunities happen. Otherwise, I'm just like, hi, Mark, I hear you have started a content creation business. Right? And it's not helpful to you. But getting in touch and being like, hey, there's a thing. specific to you that we're able to fix, maybe in a year's time, someone else is starting a show and you're like, I know a bunch of guys. Who did it. And like you say, that's why social selling's slow when you start to see the responses. And I've been very involved in social selling for 4 straight years, and we change our content release. And I don't mean creating and releasing content like we are here, but using social channels to get in front of my customer. You start to see it come back so much, because I had a conversation with someone 18 months ago who's now like, hi, things happen now. Yeah. And you were really helpful. And since then, I've seen that you've released loads of content and you're still doing it, and you're still at the top of my head. You're still at the forefront of my mind, as opposed to someone who helped me 18 months ago and I'm like, Jimmy, Sally. Was it Sally?
Yeah.
Who was it? Flipping through business cards. I don't have business cards anymore. No. I have LinkedIn. Yeah. So, how does that business card end up on the top of the pile by me releasing content and reminding you I still exist?
What about the channels for social selling? So I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn. That's the one I use. I do use Twitter a bit for maybe listening a bit what's going on.
Sure.
I rarely use I use Instagram for personal stuff. And
sure.
TikTok I haven't been on at all. I don't even know what that is. But I hear about it through Gary V.
Don't, me too.
And Facebook, again, for personal stuff. So what's your view of what platforms should use? Should IT businesses be looking at Instagram and Facebook and Twitter?
So the IT industry seems to think that when I leave work, I turn off LinkedIn and I walk in, hi honey, and I open Facebook. And as soon as I leave, I close Facebook and I do not open that again because I go to work and I open LinkedIn. It's not the case. I'm on all the social channels all the time.
I'm on it, yeah. I look at LinkedIn at weekends.
Yeah, me too.
In fact, all the time.
Yeah, me too. At nights. When I'm sat watching Netflix and I'm just...
Any notification I look at, bang.
Yeah, me too. I'm a complete narcissist. Like I kill myself getting all those notifications covered. But on all the channels, it's the same thing. I go on Instagram and it's like a fun one because it's lots of content, lots of quick content. I also follow Gary Vee. I follow a bunch of business stuff on there as well. With Instagram, I can target very specifically through the use of hashtags the people I want to get content in front of. What's interesting about Instagram is the age range. Unfortunately, talking of dinosaurs, right? We're a bit old for Instagram. We're like the top end, and then it goes down to like 20, 25. Below that is TikTok at the moment, just for the ages of users. And people say, well, I don't want, the junior level people. That's not who I'm targeting. Sure, but every time I want to find something out, I'm like, hey, Greg, what's that? Or, hey, Jez, what's this?
Yeah.
Those are the people who advise me. Where do they see it? They see it on Instagram and then they go and find it because it's in front of them. So it's a useful platform to use. And it's kind of different horses, different courses. I think, Facebook can be great for the old guys like us because we use it a lot more as that's what our friends are on. And, he's had a birthday, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
I'm not working at night. I'm not working at the weekends. If I see something awesome, I check it out, no matter what it's on. And I don't switch on a brain and be like, now I am working LinkedIn. I just don't. I'm kind of flitting between all of them. So you want to put engaging content across everything, which sits for that platform, knowing that maybe I'm not in a straight business mode, but so it can be a bit lighter, depending on your audience. If it's on Facebook, then maybe LinkedIn. Or you can post the same thing, see how it works. And I'm the same. I don't particularly use Twitter that much because it seems to be, again, an older age group and that older age group aren't particularly into digital marketing. So for me, it's not something I'm using that much. So I know the answer is horrendous because it's use them all. But actually, it's just use them all as you're using them.
Yeah, because I've listened to more Gary Vee now, and I look from Instagram, and he's very much promoting now. He said, LinkedIn, but he's really promoting LinkedIn. He thinks he's sort of trying to double down on LinkedIn. What would you say is the best platform of choice for you?
Yeah, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, as much as I'm like, you have to use it. It's absolutely imperative that you're using LinkedIn because of how I can target people. If I'm an IT security, I can contact the IT security manager, the CISO, the whoever. Right, I can contact literally the people in there. I can connect with an exec or a lower level person, use that one connection to then open up my market for the whole company. I can look at a company and literally just do the whole department. So I can get in touch with them. Does that mean I'm going to send them a message? No, but now they're seeing my content if they've connected with me. They're seeing the posts I'm doing. I've just expanded that. Maybe they're connected with people in similar roles in similar companies. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? Yeah. Right? You know, no two IT people have ever hung out in competitive companies. Yeah. So now they're seeing when they like a post, it gets out there as well.
Great. Jay, my last question, and I'm going to adapt it slightly to you because of the social selling. If you were going to give a bit of advice to a contributor, salesperson, or a sales manager who wanted to make a name for themselves over social selling or get that social platform going, what bit of advice would you give them?
It's not a sprint. You're building a brand. I think it's also very important for those new salespeople to or contributors to be doing that, because you may not work at that company full time. Just because the company you're working for doesn't, believe in social selling, that doesn't mean that you can't be building your brand. And when you move on next, you take all those people that you've connected with onto your next role and expand that. But I think if you're using social selling now, you're going to get better at it. Start using it, use it as much as you can, and like I say, you're going to get better at it, and the people who aren't using this fantastic tool are going to be left behind relatively quickly.
Perfect. Jay, thanks for bringing us. If anyone wants to reach out to you, they can contact you directly via LinkedIn.
Absolutely. So Jay Ludgrove on all the platforms, or you can follow us at GLProUK on all the platforms.
Perfect. Jay, you've been a great guest. Thanks for your time. Cheers. Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.